We're absolutely surrounded by stories every single day.
Oh, totally.
Movies, books you can't put down, even just like a friend tell you about their weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
We lean in, we get hooked, and sometimes those stories they stick with us
Mm-hmm.
for ages.
Yeah.
But have you ever really stopped to wonder why? What is it exactly that makes one story really resonate, grab you, while another one just kind of fizzles?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Okay, let's unpack this. Today on the Deep Dive, we're pulling back the curtain on narrative. We've got some incredibly insightful advice here from the fiction writing master, Orson Scott Card.
Oh, yeah. Card knows his stuff.
We're going to explore the fundamental types of stories he identifies and, really crucially, the character journeys within them.
The character arcs, basically.
Exactly. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll have this powerful new lens, a new way to understand and honestly appreciate pretty much every narrative you come across.
Mm-hmm.
Big sci-fi epics, quiet character dramas, all of it.
What's fascinating here is how Card just breaks fiction down to its blueprints. It's really structural.
Blueprints, I like that.
Yeah, he teaches that every piece of fiction, novel, short story, doesn't matter, has two distinct stages. There's the composition stage and the performance stage.
Okay.
So think of the writer as both composer, the storyteller, the architect, and the performer, the one who actually writes it out, the prose.
Right.
And the structure, the decisions made in that composition stage, they are absolutely vital. They set the foundation for everything.
So what you're saying is, like, if a story feels off or just doesn't land with us,
Yeah.
it might not be the fancy words or the dialogue.
Right.
It could be the fundamental blueprint itself that's, well, flawed. Card's giving us sort of X-ray vision for stories.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. If you don't compose well, get that structure right, even the most beautiful performance, the best prose, won't make it a good story. It's about understanding that underlying architecture.
Gotcha. And our mission today, then, is to extract those core architectural elements. We're going to dive into Card's fundamental story types and look at how characters are designed to fit, or sometimes, maybe surprisingly, twist those structures.
Yeah, the twists are interesting too.
There's basically a shortcut, right, to being really well informed about how stories are built, the architecture of narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Orson Scott Card says stories fall into four basic types: milieu, idea, character, and event.
Mm-hmm.
And he stresses these aren't just genre labels like mystery or sci-fi. Each type has its own kind of implicit structure that gives the whole story its shape.
Exactly.
And understanding these is powerful because why? What does it unlock for us?
Well, zooming out, what's crucial is that these aren't just labels. Think of them as maps. They map out how a story fulfills its implicit promises to you, the reader.
Promises.
Yeah, a story right at the start, it creates some kind of tension or need, an expectation in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
The ending then has to ease that specific tension,
Yeah.
satisfy that specific need. If your beginning sets up one kind of need, say, exploring a weird world, and your ending satisfies a totally different one, like who solved the crime, the reader feels cheated.
Oh, okay. Mismatched expectations.
Exactly. It's about knowing what kind of journey you're signing up for and then actually getting it delivered.
Okay, so breaking down these four types, where should we start? Is there one that kind of sets the stage? Maybe one where the setting itself is the star.
Absolutely. Let's start right there with the Milieu story.
Milieu. Okay.
This is where the world itself pretty much is the main character. The primary focus is the setting.
Not just backdrop.
No, definitely not. We're talking physical locations,
Yeah.
customs, laws, social roles, public expectations, everything that forms the very fabric of that story's world.
So the environment is central,
Mm.
almost alive in a way.
Mm.
How does that structure work then? How do you tell that story?
Structurally, it's actually pretty straightforward. A character, usually an outsider or someone new to it, is brought into this setting.
Right.
And then they move through it. And as they move, you, the reader, get to experience all the interesting details. You discover the world with them.
Ah, okay. The characters are guide.
Exactly. And the story typically ends when that character either goes back home or when the world feels like it's been thoroughly explored. The goal isn't really deep character change or a super complex plot. It's about that immersive experience of a different place.
Okay.
And here's the real insight. If you've ever read a book where you thought, wow, this world is amazing, but the characters are kind of flat,
Yeah. Happens all the time in sci-fi and fantasy sometimes.
Card would say that's probably by design. That is the point. The world is the draw, and that's what makes it effective as a milieu story.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, Card gives examples like Gulliver's Travels or a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court.
Classic example.
And you're right, the point isn't Gulliver's deep psychological journey.
Not at all.
It's exploring Lilliput, Brobdingnag, these strange societies. It's the tour.
It's the tour. And this raises a really important point connecting back to what you just said. A lot of speculative fiction, science fiction, and fantasy is, at its heart, milieu stories.
Right.
Card notes that SF and fantasy are often defined by their milieu. They take you, the reader, into an otherwise unknowable world.
So the world building is the story, in a sense.
In many cases, yes. Think about the rules of magic in fantasy, or the rules of starflight, FTL, hyperspace, in sci-fi. Those rules are integral parts of the milieu. Even if the story isn't about how hyperspace works, those rules shape the world. They enable the story's possibilities.
They define what's possible in that universe.
Precisely. He makes a slight distinction. Fantasy might use a talisman or praying to a tree. Sci-fi might be pressing a button or climbing in a machine. But both are defining their rules of magic, their world's physics. So next time you're lost in some amazing fantasy world, even if the characters aren't having huge personal epiphanies, the story might still be fulfilling its promise perfectly just by letting you inhabit that unique place.
Fascinating distinction. Okay, so from worlds, let's pivot to puzzles. The idea story. How does Card define that one?
The idea story is all about the quest for an answer. Simple as that. A problem or a central question gets posed right near the beginning.
Okay.
And the story's entire job is to reveal the answer by the end. It's purely about discovery, information gathering.
So structurally, how does that play out if it's driven by a question?
Well, typically the main characters figure out a plan to solve the problem or find the answer.
Right.
And you, the reader, keep reading to find out if the plan works, if it is the solution. Often something goes wrong, they have to improvise.
Of course. Got to have obstacles.
Right. But the story is fundamentally over when that initial problem is solved, the question answered. It's meant to be this satisfying intellectual journey.
Okay. And Card's examples here are pretty clear-cut, right? Like murder mysteries.
Exactly. Who did it? Why? How? That's the core.
Or things like caper stories.
Yeah.
Robbing a bank, pulling off a con.
Yeah. How will they do it? Will they get away with it? The driving force is finding the solution to that initial puzzle.
But Card has a warning here, doesn't he?
Yeah.
About how these can go wrong.
Oh, crucial one. He says, with idea stories, the audience is constantly asking these questions. So what? Oh, yeah. And huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean practically?
Well, the real takeaway is this. If a mystery feels flat, or maybe a thriller doesn't quite grip you,
Yep.
it's probably because the characters aren't actively struggling with the puzzle alongside you. If the characters seem to already know the answers, or the information just sort of falls into their laps, and only the audience is left asking the questions.
So the characters aren't driving the discovery.
Exactly. Then the structure is being misused. It kills the suspense, kills the reader's involvement. The story has to be about the characters searching for answers, improvising, hitting dead ends, not just the audience passively trying to figure it out.
That's a great point. The struggle is part of the story, not just the answer. Okay, now, the big one, maybe. The one that feels so central to so many narratives today. The character story. This gets right to the heart of character arcs, right?
Absolutely. This is often what people mean when they talk about deep storytelling. Card defines a character story as being about a person trying to change their role in life.
Their role, okay, unpack that a bit.
By role, he means their whole network of relationships with other people, with society, their place in the world. The story kicks off when their current situation, their current role, becomes unbearable.
Intolerable, right.
And it ends when they either find a new role they can live with, or they choose to go back to the old one, or maybe they just despair of ever changing.
So it's really an internal journey manifesting externally.
Very much so. And Card stresses it's vital that the protagonist, the one whose change is the subject of the story, must be fully characterized. You need to know them, care about them for their journey to matter.
Makes sense. It's less about external plot points and more about that internal shift. Identity, relationships. How does Card illustrate this? Any examples?
Yeah, he gives some great ones. Carson McCullers, Member of the Wedding. It's all about this young girl, Frankie, just desperately longing to change her role in her household to belong somewhere else.
Right, I remember that. Her brother's wedding becomes this focal point.
Exactly. Or The Barretts of Wimpole Street. That's about Elizabeth Barrett fighting to redefine her role, break free from her tyrannical father's control.
Not about solving a crime or exploring a new planet.
No, it's about profound personal shifts. Who am I? Where do I fit? Can I change that?
Okay, but how do characters change in Card's view? Is it always like 0 to hero?
That's a key point he makes. It's not always straightforward transformation. Sometimes, he says, characters are actually unmasked.
Unmasked.
Yeah, the story reveals their true nature, something that was maybe hidden or suppressed. He mentions Doro in Octavia Butler's Wild Seed as an example. The story reveals the core of who Doro is, rather than fundamentally changing him.
Interesting. So revelation, not just evolution.
Right. And other times, change might come from forces beyond their control. Genetic drives, bodily needs, environmental pressures. So while we talk about character arcs, Card's view is nuanced. It's about fundamental shifts in identity and relationships, whether that's becoming someone new or showing who you always were.
Okay.
And this is crucial for you as a reader because it explains why some character journeys feel like transformation and others feel more like a profound reveal. Both are valid character stories.
And it feels like character stories have become just dominant, right? They influenced everything else.
Hugely. Readers now expect deeper characterization even in milieu or event stories. You expect to get to know the people regardless of whether their personal change is the absolute main focus.
Yeah, we want to connect with the people.
Yeah.
Okay, final type, the event story. What's the core idea here?
Event story starts with the world out of whack. There's disorder, chaos, imbalance.
Okay.
And the story is about the struggle to restore order, to set things right, reestablish balance.
And disorder can mean lots of things.
Oh, yeah. Could be an unpunished crime. Think the Count of Monte Cristo, seeking justice, or even Oedipus Rex, uncovering the source of the plague.
Right, or a usurper.
Definitely. Macbeth is a prime example. Someone wrongly took power, order must be restored. Or it could be a big external evil force, Sauron in Lord of the Rings, or, how Card mentions Nazis, communists, terrorists often function in thrillers.
The big bad.
The big bad disrupting the world. Or even just a betrayal of trust that throws things into chaos. It's about a significant disruption needing correction.
And Card has advice on structuring these epic feeling stories, right?
He does, and it's really smart. Begin small.
Small.
Yeah.
Even for saving the world.
Especially then. Don't try to show the entire war, the whole cataclysm right at the beginning. He points to Homer's Iliad. It doesn't start with a summary of the Trojan War. It starts with Achilles' anger, a very personal conflict.
Focus on the individual first.
Exactly. You need to care about the hero, the individual characters involved first, get emotionally invested in them. Only then will you actually care about them saving the world or restoring order. Build the personal stakes before the global ones.
That makes sense. Get us invested personally.
And here's a really fascinating insight Card offers about event stories. Sometimes the main character isn't the hero you root for.
Wait, how does that work?
Well, consider Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi.
Okay, villain, right?
Villain, yes. Luke, Leia, Han. They're the protagonists we follow having the adventures. But Card argues, especially by that third film, pretty much everything the good guys do is reacting to Vader.
He's driving the action.
He's calling the shots, he's the center. His choices, confronting Luke, ultimately turning on the Emperor, are what resolve the central conflict of the film. Even though we never hoped he'd win, structurally speaking, Card says it's undeniably Vader's story by the end. His actions determine the outcome.
Wow, okay, that flips the perspective. The narrative engine isn't always the person we sympathize with.
Exactly. It's about who holds the power to change the course of events.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so that covers the 4 types. But that brings us back to characters, which seem crucial across the board. Even if it's not strictly a character story, you still need compelling characters, right?
Absolutely critical. Readers just expect it now. You have to make them care about the people involved. And Card gives us some really powerful tools for characterization, useful in any story type.
Okay, lay them on us. What are the key tools?
First up, motive and past. Super important. What a character means to do their intention and what they have done or what's been done to them. That's paramount.
Why the past matters so much.
Because knowing someone's past completely reframes how you understand who they are now. Card uses examples like, imagine you see someone acting really abrasive at a party.
Okay.
You might judge them harshly, but what if you then learn they were a former POW trying to cope? Or they just suffered a huge betrayal? Or were desperately trying to distract everyone from a friend's embarrassing mistake?
Context changes everything.
Completely. The past provides that context. It adds layers, explains present behavior, makes them more than just their surface actions.
Okay, motive and past. What else?
Next, stereotypes and individuality. This is interesting. Stereotypes can actually be useful.
Useful. Aren't they bad?
For minor characters, walk-ons who just need to blend in, they can be efficient shorthand. The typical grumpy bus driver, the efficient desk clerk, they serve their function and disappear.
Okay, background noise.
Right. But the moment you play against a stereotype, you create instant interest, curiosity.
How so?
Think about how many forgettable characters just feel like cardboard cutouts because they are just the stereotype. Card gives this great example. An old man looks frail, maybe post-cancer treatment. You expect certain things.
Yeah, quiet, maybe weak.
Right. But then he unexpectedly asks for help finishing a bottle of Chablis. That tiny detail, playing against the stereotype, makes him instantly memorable, more human.
Ah, the unexpected detail. I like that.
Then, for making minor characters pop without hijacking the plot, eccentricity and exaggeration.
So making them a bit quirky.
Exactly. Give them a memorable quirk, an obsession, something exaggerated. Card mentions Bronson Pinchot's character, Serge, in Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, yeah. Axel Foley. With the accent.
That accent, the effeminate mannerisms, the unexpectedness of it all, hilarious and memorable, but he doesn't take over the story. Or Card's example of a super aggressive cabbie who complains about the tip even after you correct your own mistake.
Right. Makes them stick in your mind.
Just enough flavor to feel real, even in a brief appearance.
Okay, this is great for making characters distinct. What about getting the reader emotionally invested? Really hooking them?
For that, Card points to suffering and jeopardy.
Ooh, okay. Hitting them where it hurt.
Pretty much. Well-presented pain, physical or emotional, and the real, palpable jeopardy of something terrible happening. That dramatically increases the reader's emotional involvement.
Makes sense. We feel for people who are hurting or in danger.
He uses Stephen King's The Dead Zone as a prime example. Johnny Smith wakes from a coma, having lost his career, his fiancée, and dealing with debilitating physical pain and terrifying visions. That suffering makes you invest deeply.
Yeah, King's a master of that.
Or Card mentions a TV movie, The Dollmaker, with a scene where a mother is desperately trying to save her child from an oncoming train. The tension, built on her prior struggles and suffering, it pushes the audience right over the edge. You're in it with her.
Creates that visceral connection.
Yeah.
Okay. Suffering and jeopardy. Powerful stuff.
Then there's the fundamental art of arousing sympathy or antipathy, making the reader like or dislike a character.
The basics, right. How do you make us like someone?
Card suggests giving characters a clear plan, a purpose, a hunger, dreams, show them having courage, taking physical, social, or financial risks, and importantly, show them demonstrating fair play, basic decency.
So relatable goals and admirable qualities.
Exactly. And interestingly, even flaws can make characters more loved if they're combined with sympathetic traits. Think Sherlock Holmes and his cocaine habit. It's a flaw, but it exists alongside his brilliance and his drive for justice, making him feel more complex, more human.
Right. Flaws make them relatable, not just perfect heroes, and making us dislike them. Antipathy.
Oh, that's almost easier. Show them deliberately causing others to suffer. Sadists, bullies. Card points to Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. Shonen.
Systematically degrading people, or show someone usurping power, unfairly betraying trust, or just having a consistently bad attitude, always blaming others, humorless, bragging constantly.
Instant turnoff.
Definitely. But Card adds a crucial caveat. Even villains should be the hero of their own story. They need reasons, justifications, even if they're twisted. They can't just be evil for evil's sake, usually. They need some kind of internal logic to be believable.
Right, makes them feel like actual characters, not just plot devices.
And this all ties into a classic literary idea, the hero and the common man. Northrop Frye talked about this pendulum swing in literature between romantic heroes idealized, larger than life, and realistic ones, plain, ordinary folks.
So like superheroes versus slice-of-life characters.
Sort of. Card's point is that while readers might initially connect with common, ordinary people, we get bored pretty quickly unless that character proves to be extraordinary in some way.
Extraordinary how? Not necessarily superpowers.
No, not at all. It could be extraordinary virtue or resilience or insight. He gives this example of Pete, a totally average guy, seems like a pushover.
Okay.
But then he quietly sacrifices his own career to cover for a really difficult, nasty employee named Nora. And Nora just reacts horribly to his kindness.
Oh, wow.
Pete's action shows this incredible selfless virtue that even he doesn't seem to value much, but the audience sees it and holds him in awe for it. He becomes extraordinary through that choice, that hidden strength.
Making the ordinary extraordinary. That's powerful.
Mhm.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot. Milieu, idea, character, event stories, and all these ways to craft characters that resonate. So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
Yeah, what's the big takeaway?
Well, understanding these core story types and character techniques from Orson Scott Card. It's not just for writers, right?
Not at all.
It's this incredibly powerful lens for any story you encounter. It helps you understand why certain narratives hook you, why they resonate, how they achieve their effect. It's like being given the secret decoder ring for storytelling.
That's the beauty of it, really. Once you start seeing these structures, the Milieu focus, the idea question, the character transformation, the event restoration, and these character archetypes, these techniques, you honestly can't unsee them.
It changes how you watch movies, read books.
Absolutely. You gain this much deeper appreciation for the craft involved. And knowing these rules, as Cards lays them out, it doesn't limit creativity. He shows how it actually opens up possibilities. You can play with them, subvert them, combine them, but you know what you're working with.
Okay, so a final thought to leave everyone with. Building on this idea of composition and performance, the blueprints and the building.
Yeah.
Think about the stories you encounter every single day. I mean, everything from a news report, maybe an ad, to just a casual story someone tells you over coffee.
Everywhere.
How might these basic story types, milieu, idea, character, event, and these character principles we talked about, how might they be operating, shaping your understanding, your emotional response, even when you least expect it?
That's a great question. Are you being taken on a tour, asked to solve a puzzle, invited into someone's personal struggle, or witnessing a restoration of order?
Exactly. Start noticing that unseen architecture, the blueprints beneath the surface of the narratives all around you. It's fascinating stuff.